I'm excited today because one of my really good colleagues, Miss Troydar, and she already knows how I feel about her. But at the end of the day, I'm just so thankful that she is more than willing to each semester come in and teach uh, a little bit about her craft, and also making herself accessible to students, which she's always done, no matter what, because she realizes not only where she works, but um, you know, you guys are our future. No Whitney Houston. So that was a song back in the day. But anyway, so today we are going to actually work together in the sense of co-presenting on effective writing for emerging professionals. Of course, you guys are emerging professionals, right? And so many of you that I've worked with on writing, I always tell you that, if nothing else that you learn, make sure that you learn how to write as well as how to speak, because both, but first and foremost, the writing aspect is going to always be before you. And cover letters, statements of problems for graduate school, resumes, they're always going to get there before you. And if they don't look up to par, then you've already made your first impression.
As Dr. Meredith shared with you, I am well, he may not have mentioned this, but for those who don't know, I am the information coordinator for the College of Agriculture and Science and Technology at Delaware State University. Prior to that, I held the same position at Lincoln University in Missouri, which is one of our sister 1890 land grant universities. Between those two jobs, I also ran my own company, Communications. So just wanted to give you a little backgrounder there before we get started. So when we talk about writing, we want to talk about the importance of doing it effectively. Why is it so important? Professional writing is a life skill, right? Dr. Meredith alluded to that early on. This is something that if you can master techniques early on, for the rest of your life, you'll be drawing from some of those habits. So we define effective writing, professional writing specifically. It is clear, it's relevant, it's persuasive, it's results oriented. And this is something that, again, a skill set, if you master it now as you're still embracing the academic world, this is something that you will use as a professional. And so when we talk about professional writing, we're looking at a series of genres. So first, academic, which is instructional and informational. Think about your textbooks. Think about the writing that you impart because you're conveying a message that demonstrates your command of whatever it is that you're being taught, right? Business writing is transactional because often you are requesting something of the reader. You're requesting some actionable step. So that's transactional. Creative writing is typically informational. So that's, it may be for pleasure, just providing people with some kind of inspirational outlet like poetry, fiction writing. Technical writing is typically instructional. So think about any of the writing manuals, the written manuals that you've received for appliances for your home, any of the tools that you use, your iPad, your cell phone. There's a manual that came with it typically, or if they're saving trees, there's something published online that you can readily access that gives you the steps to resolve issues, to help you understand how to use it properly. And of course, then there's copy or content writing, which is typically persuasive. So think about marketing, right? Think about public relations and how writers help to build a brand to make sure the public understands where that company stands. When we talk about the steps that are involved in writing, planning should be key. And, there's a familiar adage that goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that can be applied to so many different issues in life. Before you start writing, take time to plan what you want to say. That helps you to organize your thoughts. And organization is important, especially as you get into grammar, syntax, and how the words on the page or the words that you are submitting for whatever reason are going to be consumed by the end reader. What is the purpose?
Can I say one thing?
Sure, go ahead.
And I'm not, like I said, I'm not picking on anybody because I was the same way when I was in undergrad at Dell State. But and I would always consistently hear this. Um, then when I started working here from students, is like, I can write, yeah, I can pump out a 3-page, 5-page paper, the night before. And it's just not true. Like, yeah, you can do it, but you're not going to be the person that's going to end up grading it, right? So I know for me, emerging, going into graduate school and then becoming a professional, I just always realized that Dr. Taylor, we were interviewing scholars. Actually, you were there too, Troy. We were interviewing scholars, and I can't remember what the potential scholar did, or if it was in their writing. But she had just told them, she was like, if you are going to write something, you have to give your brain time, right? So, you start out, your brain thinks one thing, and then you walk away from it, maybe a day or two. But in between that time, you're going to find ways to embellish it, how to make it your own, how to think outside the box. And so that's pretty much what I'm trying to get across, as far as one, making sure that it is at a standard of, well, excellence, and then two, also making it to a standard to where you're actually going to stick out. So please be mindful of that, and just don't well, I wouldn't, yeah, just don't tell people that. All right.
Well, and I'll share some of my personal experiences as well. But again, talking about purpose and planning, and because this is all part of planning, why are you writing? Then look at your timeline. And this is something that Dr. Meredith was sharing with you just now. So one of the things I think about when I'm determining how I'm going to produce something written, right? If it's something that it needs to be produced on deadline, I don't have time to plan. So now all of the habits, those good writing habits that I have learned over a course of time, even since middle school myself, those habits come back. They're refreshed in my mind, and I'm able to then churn out something, that's typically, decent enough. It passes muster. But of course, if I had more time, I would be able to go back and polish more and whatnot. And sometimes Dr. Meredith talked about overthinking, and he's been sharing concepts to prevent that, because that can create some malaise when you're trying to actually produce, right? That can keep you stuck in the mud mentally. So one of the things that I like to do is when given the time, make sure I go back and polish. I might send it to someone and say, hey, or read to someone, hey, how does this sound? Just to make sure the message that I am conveying is clear enough for them to understand. So when I am planning writing and I have time, I typically create a reverse cron calendar, production calendar for myself. So I begin with the end in mind. I think about the due date. Then I push back. Okay, so if this is a major product, say, some type of report, a major report, or some kind of large published document, something that has to go to a printer. Okay, so what is the deadline? When does the client need it? When does this need to be produced? Then I back out. Okay, a month before, I need to be at this stage. And I map out the milestones that I need to meet in order to meet the deadline. That's if I have time. So, and I was going to share this. I'll share it briefly because I don't want to get, bogged down. But cooperative extension is one of the three arms of a land grant university. Any land grant university. We're an 1890 land grant, but you also have 1862s like University of Delaware. You have Indian Nation universities that are called 1994s. And that's basically when their land grant charters, the charter they align with. That's what those dates indicate. So in our case, cooperative extension generates impact reports. So they detail the work they do for the year. They talk about the number of people they've encountered, what they've done, how they've done it, and what the results were, and if people have changed behavior based on the work they've produced. So they have to write reports that detail all of that. Right now, I'm going through impact reports that have to then be uploaded with University of Delaware reports because they're one of our partners. USDA is also a partner. So inevitably, stakeholders from USDA, legislators from the local, state, and national levels might want to read about what's going on. And why do you think that's important? Because there's funding attached to that. So some people will take those impact reports, they'll take that information and determine what kind of additional funding they may lend to a certain product. Okay? We talked about timelines, guidelines. Think about the guidelines that you have to follow. APA style guide, or is it MLA, I think, style guides that you may have to follow when you're producing research documents or papers for class, essays for class. There's a style that your professor has already determined you need to follow for your academic work. Well, in professional setting, you'll also have some guardrails for your writing. Why do you think that's important? I'll tell you why. Because just like you have a personal brand, businesses have developed and polished their brands, and they like to sustain them. So in order to do that, they create in-house guidelines for all employees to follow so that there's a consistent look and feel to whatever communication they are distributing to the public, right? So once you leave academia and you get your professional job, chances are before you send anything out in writing that conveys a message of policy or is persuasive in trying to, land a major account or whatever, you're going to have someone say to you, okay, these are the guidelines we need to follow in our writing so that our image remains intact. So think about guidelines. Resources. There are all kinds of online resources now. Of course, libraries are not out of fashion, even though some people may think they are, but libraries are resourceful and you get all of that information for free. You have access to that for free. So just consider what resources you have available to you. So again, we're talking about our purpose. So we've planned, and that planning includes purpose. What is the writing category? Again, I talked about informational, persuasive, or entertaining writing categories. So that's part of determining your purpose. Make sure that your writing focuses on your intended audience. So you wouldn't write the same information to a friend as you would to a potential employer, or once you get the job, to a potential client. So just understand what the purpose is of your writing and make sure there's clear delineation when you are writing. One of the things I shared with Dr. Meredith is I still like Twitter. Okay, you may think, okay, boomer, I don't care. But on Twitter, there are often people who tweet about causes that I care about, but their tweet may be so poorly written, I'll just scroll right by because I can't understand. You've lost me as a member of your potential audience because now I can't get to your message because of all the disarray in your message. So it could be grammar, syntax. It could just be, you were careless with typos, or it was too jargony and I didn't understand what it was you were trying to convey because you belong to an organization and they know what all that means. But the broader audience is not going to understand that. So just think about the audience you're writing for. And remember that your purpose in writing determines the delivery medium that you're going to use. So if you're writing something formal, you can use email, but typically your style of writing it's not going to, I mean, you're not going to submit it via, let's say, social media. You're trying to write to a potential employer. You're not going to use the back of a postcard or something, kishy to try to send to them to encourage them to consider you over someone else. Because cutesy, all of that has its realm, but it's not in the professional realm. So just consider what delivery medium you are going to use for your writing. So we're going to take a little closer look at the concept of writing to your audience. And I just shared a clip of that with you about the use of language. So if you are accustomed to using slang or you're accustomed to using jargon that is widely known and accepted in your field of study or in your profession, just remember your potential audience may contain people who don't understand what that means. So you'll have to make your language clear. Consider your tone. Case in point, some people consider me the master of the complaint letter, and I could be. I recently wrote to my water delivery company because they changed my delivery date 3 times this month, meaning I did not receive any water delivery this month. So I wrote a strongly worded letter via email to corporate to let them know I was displeased. My tone was professional, but it was matter of fact, letting them know I'm going to take decisive action if this isn't corrected. And the reply I got was professional in nature in return. They understood what I conveyed because my message was clear, and they indicated that they are going to make sure all of that gets rectified and my schedule will be set right. Formality, again, think about why you're writing, who you're writing to, then determine what level of formality you need. Again, talking about potential employers. You're not going to write to them the same way you would write to a friend. So just keep that in mind. And I had a little note here on the side. So audience analysis overview, if you want to, especially when you get to your place of employment, you may be required to think more critically about who your audience is, right? So you'll be asked to consider your stakeholders, and your stakeholders could be the readers, potential readers, or people who may be affected by what you write. So they may not read what your missives at all, but they may be affected by what you write. And again, I'm thinking about policy setting. Accessibility, make sure that you, especially in this day and age, it's important to make sure that what you deliver, the message you convey, is accessible by people who may not have sight, may not have hearing. And so we have to be mindful of what it is we're putting out and how we're delivering it to make sure that a broad spectrum of the public can access it. Reading level. I always used to be told that I needed to write to an 8th grade reading level. Well, these days it's 7th to 8th grade. So we've slipped a bit in the American readability scale. So we want to make sure we write to express, not to impress, right? And we talked about reading level, and let's see if this link works. Let's see, I don't know. That's not a way. Share application, sharing. Okay, so, all right. Let's go back. No, because you're not seeing it. Okay. Let me stop and then go back. Let's see. Okay. So I was going to share with you information about the reading level. So now the typical reading level is 7th to 8th grade for the general public. And beyond that, only about, I think it's less than 12% of the American public read better than in 8th grade, have a higher reading level than 8th grade. So just that's food for thought. And at the end of my presentation, there will be some links, and I can provide that information to Dr. Meredith, and he can share with you so that you can read this for yourself. I found it interesting but disturbing at the same time. So, writing style. Active voice is engaging. Together, I saw something come up from, I don't want to say it wrong again.
It's Azure. She
Azure.
asked, she asked, what advice would you have for gaining a better writing skill? I say that as in, like, I feel like sometimes I'm not able to express what I actually want to say in text messages to papers. So how can I
Mhm.
improve in the area? Can I just say one thing?
Sure. And I'm going to go back while you're doing that
All
because I
right,
missed a couple
and
of
I'm not
minutes.
going to take long because they actually have, I think, 20 minutes left. But one thing I will say is this: is that everything does not need to be in a text message. Depending on what the situation is, then, and I might be taking from your presentation. I'm sorry, but there was a situation that happened with me this morning, and one of my closest friends, his birthday was yesterday. Well, my birthday was like my 40th was last November. And I think he had a bogus excuse, but I didn't care because it was still my birthday. But long story short, he cared more and felt guilty about it and kept on bringing it up. And so before it kept on, it kind of turned into a bigger thing than what it ever should be because it's just a birthday and we've never had a disagreement as friends. So yesterday, even though his birthday was in my calendar, I legitimately, all on accident, forgot his birthday. And so I got ready to text happy belated birthday. And I said, no, things have gone a little too far back and forth. And he might think that I'm being petty. So I called him and I expressed everything that I need to say just to make sure that we were still on one accord. So that's just one example. So, like I said, tone matters, and really what you need to talk about matters when you are going to actually use text messages.
Right, right. That is very important. And I will add to that. So if you don't think you can fully express it in a text message, because those are meant to be very brief message conveyances, right? So if you don't think you can do it in a text message, consider email or consider confiding in the person in via phone. I know your generation may not like to pick up the phone as much, but or in person, so that they now get your body language coupled with the tone of your voice, which all of that is stripped away when we're talking about sending written messages, right? So people, I might send you a text message and you may feel offended because you're in your mind, you conceive that I'm delivering the message one way and I may mean no malice at all. But you don't know that clearly in a text message. So that's one thing, but I wanted to share this with you. And I mentioned to you before, and I'm trying to, push forward because I know you don't have much time. But there are some kernels of truth that I learned throughout time that I still take advantage of. And one was from Mr. Gershon in seventh grade, where he said, "Why use a $5 word when a $1 word will do?" So just think again about writing to express, not impress, right? So don't get so caught up in, polysyllabic words, and it'll just become a mess. And then one of my instructors in my master's program said, don't overthink your writing. Get your thoughts down on paper first, then refine from there. And Dr. Meredith mentioned that earlier. Get the get everything down, get your thoughts down. And then once you get that out, you can start refining and reorganizing to make sure things are clear. And if you still think it's an issue, find a trusted somebody with whom you can share your work and ask for their objective opinion about what it is you've written, just to make sure that your message is clear, that the tone is a professional tone, so that the end reader can't misconstrue what it is you're trying to say or how you're trying to say it. Okay, so let me see here.
Thank you so much.
I hope that helps you. And of course, you can always reach me. I'll, make sure, I guess Dr. Meredith can share my email in the chat. Okay, let's go forward. Okay. Writing style, again, active voice is engaging. Active voice is the difference between these two sentences. Okay, thank you. John paid the down payments, or the down payment was paid by John. So active voice for me, to me, provides more clarity and it's more succinct. So when I edit other people's work, I'm typically using word economy. So I'm trying to share the message in the most efficient way possible. So instead of a lot of jargon and a lot of passive voice, I will, reconstruct the message in an active voice. So it lends some clarity there. Again, clarity and conciseness to make sure you can get your message out with as few words as possible. You don't need a whole lot of words to convey a message. Writing mechanics, and so this is gets down to style. This is your grammar, your syntax. This is also making sure that you're conveying facts and not emotion. And we talked about tone earlier. Okay. So this is something that trips people up sometimes. Provide evidence for what you have to say. Whatever you're doing, whether it's here in academia or once you progress to professional life, provide evidence when you're writing and you're asked to submit a detailed report, or there's other work that you must do that you have to reference something. Make sure you provide evidence and always seek relevant quality sources. Okay, there's some sources out there. If you investigate further, you'll see they are not necessarily the best sources to use. And that's as far as I'm going to go there. And then cite your sources properly. So again, in academia, there are certain style books or style guides that you have to use. I use journalistic writing, so I use the AP style guide or style book, which is considered the journalist's Bible, and I've used that since I was an undergrad, actually. And so now I have a subscription. I used to buy the book annually. Now I have a subscription, online subscription. But cite your sources properly. So make sure you use whatever style guide you're requested to use to organize your sources. And one thing I will say about that, that make you providing the sources and citing them correctly and using quality sources, it lends credibility to your writing and to your personal brand. And if you don't believe me, just Google the folks who chose to do things their way, chose to plagiarize, and see what kind of results they experienced. So next, we revise and polish your work. Again, grammar and syntax is important. So that's your punctuation, that's your spelling, that's everything that makes your sentences, and we talk about the granular level, talk about your sentence structure. Then, of course, once you develop your sentences, you're going to organize them into paragraphs. And that's how you get through your work. So you start with good intention, good habits, and then typically your writing will be sound. Clarity, again, make sure that it's not ambiguous. Your writing isn't ambiguous, it's clear, someone can understand the message you're attempting to convey. And again, seek constructive criticism from someone you trust so that you know what you're writing can be understood by your intended audience. And remember, if you're writing for the public, typically that's 7th to 8th grade reading level. And also make sure your writing is inclusive. So think about the isms. And if you're not sure if your writing is inclusive, again, that's where that constructive criticism, it can be very helpful. If someone reading it may alert you to, hey, I had recently an experience of reviewing someone's book manuscript. And throughout the book, they wrote slaves were, slaves did, slaves. I said, the nomenclature for people who were enslaved is enslaved people, enslaved persons, enslaved, man or woman, as opposed to slaves, because slave is not an identity. It's what was done to people. So I helped her understand that needed to be changed throughout the excerpts that included that language. And final thoughts. This is a quote from Dr. Seuss. The writer who breathes more words than he needs is making a chore for the reader who reads. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm available. Dr. Meredith, I turn it back over to you.
Yeah.
Let me
So,
stop sharing.
oh, I'm sitting here
You
thinking,
want me to stop sharing?
sure,
Okay, stop. Here we go.
because I'm going to come
Yes.
up with
There
the
we go.
quick
Okay.
examples. You guys, if you do have any questions, if you could put it in the chat, and or you can always just raise your hand. I'll be able to see it. At this point, I did tell you guys that I was going to bring real life examples that students have asked me to edit. Of course, that's not cheating as long as you are bringing the bare bones, and then I am providing whatever meat or whatever, how that saying goes. I've been up for a minute, so I'm tired. Uh, so, yeah. So these are some examples, and then also if you look in the chat on the right hand side. All of the links when we're talking about writing resources are there. The one that I love the most because I've used the longest, probably since 2007, no, six, is the OWL, which is through Purdue University. It's a free resource. Any and everything that you could ever think about how to write is literally there. And then also, I was working with a student on Sunday, and we were able to find some resources on Indeed.com when it comes to resume writing, cover letters. I'm going to show you a little bit, not show you the website itself, but at least what it looks like if you need to identify it. Then there also are two other resources there, one from Harvard, and I forgot where the other one's from, but there are two articles that go into professional writing. So I think that that's important too. Yeah, one is how to write better emails at work, and then also how to write a professional email. So where are we? Slideshow. And so I'm going to ask you guys, of course, to just look over this for like 30 seconds. I'm going to ask, I know nobody's going to just like offer to say their thoughts. So since I know people in here, I'll just call on various people just to ask them what they at least see that is incorrect. It could just be one thing. Yeah, so this is an email to a potential employer. And Amari West, what is one thing that you feel like you see that is that's out of sync with this message to a potential employer?
The only thing that I can see as of right now is the closing. Sincerely, XXX Jackson.
Oh, that's to protect the student. So that's just a made up name. Like the XXX would be the first name, and then the Jackson would be the last name. Because these are actual letters from your actual peers that are on here. So I took their names off of them. Does anybody else see anything? Summer, what do you think? I see you studying.
Um, there's a space in between how and you. That's the thing that like stuck out to me the most. And
Okay.
then maybe just the structure of the sentences.
Okay. That's good. What about starting out and you're already asking for something and you have no body of I wouldn't have any body of what you want as far as what you're asking from me. I haven't seen it yet, but it's right here in the beginning, right? So this is what we did when we cleaned it up. And you guys can look at it. Like I said, I'm not Mrs. Darden, so there might I might even have some mistakes. And actually, Miss Darden, wouldn't shouldn't Caribbean restaurants be lowercase because it's not the actual um name of the Caribbean restaurant?
I think Caribbean as a word is
Uppercase?
uppercase, yes,
Okay.
because it denotes, right. So just like you wouldn't lowercase Africa or
Mhm.
another kinds of Europe,
Oh,
right.
okay. Now,
So
Miss Darden will tell you that is one thing that I struggle with is capitalization because it gets to being so crazy. Like, of course, if you're talking about English, that has to be capitalized. But if you're talking about plant science, that's lowercase. If it's Spanish, it's capitalized. So, and then when you start getting back into capitalization that's specific to academia versus other places. So a lot of times I just have to ask Siri and she tells me what needs to be done. Anything that can you guys see the specific difference
Well,
or some differences?
could I just piggyback on what you just said too, because I mentioned style guides in my presentation. And so just like other places, Delaware State University has a style guide for writing.
Mm,
So that's always something that I will consult. But again, I will defer to AP when I'm sending out public missives because that's the journalistic guide.
okay. But also in addition, does everybody see in the change in the first paragraph? What is the big change in the first paragraph from this one versus the last one?
The greetings.
Yes, the greeting, but how?
I forget what it said at first, but like you're saying good day and like starting the conversation rather than just kind of starting chatting with them.
Or
But and
going
then
right
kind of
directly, or the
ex-
other one was really going directly to the point of what you want, or why I'm even emailing versus this one kind of makes it more personable, which then you want it to be personable, relatable, and things of that nature, so that the person, basically what I'm saying is that it's actually more inviting. This one is how to reach out to staff for a resolution where all students, right? Even in me as an educator, I'm a student. I learn just as much from you guys as you do from me. And so with that being said, if we're in an institution, and we need to reach out to resolve something with a staff member or a professor, this is basically the example that was given to me before we actually worked together to edit it. Can anybody just tell me real quick one or two things that you see that might be incorrect or that you just don't agree with, or it's not the way that you would do things? Sierra?
Me personally, I would take like the classes that they want to add and like kind of like separate them from like the initial body of the message. And I would also capitalize like the name of the other classes that they already have, like Principles of Accounting, Introduction to Poultry Science. I would also like fill out like introductory, like not intro and like principles of weed science. Like me personally, I would capitalize all that because that is a name of a class, but that's just
Most
me.
definitely. And so even myself, when I started to edit it, I had to ask Siri to make sure that they were supposed to be capitalized versus not capitalized. So, like I said, writing is going to always be a process. And also, one thing, Miss Darden, I usually get defiant with rules that I've learned in grad school that have now changed, right? So, it used to be okay that if you had a succession of words like apples, comma, oranges, um, comma, and I don't know, celery. Well, that second commodity, you used to be able to either have a comma there or not at a luxury. And so I wouldn't put one. Now you have to have a comma on in each area. So it's just crazy how things you
That
have to keep.
depends on the style of writing again, because again, journalistic, we don't use the serial comma for journalistic writing.
Uh,
Right.
Okay, all fun. So, but this one, you see how we've separated it. Since I was an educational advisor, I thought in the sense of who the consumer is that has to actually then do the task to get this completed. Of course, we took it out of an accusatory light or a directive. Nobody likes to be directed. That's why I make sure when I write, I try my best to take out the word you or your. And then also, I know you need this. You need specific information if you're going to register a student, and so we just structured this differently between the CRN number as well as the actual course number, the course itself. Internship prospect email. This was a student that was interested in an internship with actually an alum, right? So yeah, she was interested in an opportunity to work with them. At the end of the day, the individual that was providing the internship could not use the student because they only had 10 hours to offer. So I said to the student, why don't you just say, hey, you trying to get into the fashion industry, tell them you'll do it for free. Like And so she did respond to her and asked if she could, do the opportunity as far as it being for free. One thing that I will say that is extremely important before I show you, you can review how we cleaned it up here. But one thing that happened afterwards, I did check in with a student and I said, well, hey, what happened? And she told me, she's like, I did not get a response. And I said, okay, well, things move pretty fast in fashion. They might be busy. And then the student quit back to me and said, should I have CC'd you on it? I said, no, absolutely not. I said, you don't do that. If you're a full blown adult, you don't lean on, a parent or somebody that might be a mentor or a teacher if you are specifically asking for an opportunity out of that individual. Can somebody please tell me why you would not want to include me on being CCing somebody?
The other person might think like they didn't do it on their own, that they received help the whole time.
Okay, that's one, but that's not the serious one.
I was thinking more of the fact that just because they're like, you're going to bat for them, if that makes sense. Like, you're kind of you're fighting their war. So it's kind of like if you get CC'd, it's like they're trying to say like, oh, I'm automatically finna get added to this program because I CC Dr. Meredith, and if they don't reply back, Dr. Meredith gonna go to bat, and yeah, that whole
Well,
thing.
one, it looks like you're not at a mature level or developed in the sense of taking on that opportunity because you're having to lean on other entities that you should already be developed to advocate for yourself. That's number one. And then number two, the issue is that if I'm an employer and then you're CCing an alum, you know what I mean, that I'm really cool with, or let's just take me out or the Dell State piece out of it. If I'm an employer and I'm employing you and you're CCing your mom or somebody else that has nothing to do with this situation, that lets me know that when you get here, you're probably going to potentially start trouble. You're either going to start trouble, or when you don't get your way, then you're going to start trouble, and I'm your supervisor. And who's going to invite in a problem, right? Nobody's going to invite in a problem. So I think this is the last one. You Scholars that and or students that have attended some of my other sessions with cover letters and resumes, they've seen this. But this was actually an actual resume that I worked with a student on. Grammarly, and that was one of the first writing resource that I put up there is literally free. Like, it is free. You can download it on your cell phone. You can download it anywhere. And for me, like I just said, I have to still work at writing, right? I loved math. I loved science because they were puzzles. You couldn't mess them up, especially through memorization. But when you're writing, you have to think about so many things and so many rules. And so, yeah, so I do use Grammarly, and you can see everything that Grammarly picked up. Uh, but yeah, and then also, clearly, well, we'll see the difference as far as the formatting, the way that it's laid out. Um, Yeah, and laid out in the sense of some of the other tasks and responsibilities that he had were cut short to where he wasn't giving himself enough credit. This whole area, as being a president of an organization for the state of Delaware, he didn't really have a lot of things and or put in alignment the workshops and conferences, experiences that are transferable skills that can make him go far as a candidate for graduate school or employment. And then, yeah, so that's an edited version. And this also is an email cover letter example. And of course, this is how it should be. And I'm moving a little bit faster because you guys are pretty much done and I need to drop the link. And then this was the last one that I said to you guys when it comes down to Indeed Career Guide. And I think that that's really important to have a resource on hand. And like I said, the resumes and cover letters, I think are invaluable, as well as interviewing and other ways to develop yourself for your career. Are there any questions for me while I drop the link or the examples? None. Okay. Hold on one second.
While he's doing that, let me just say thank you to everyone who attended. I certainly appreciate your attention, and I hope that I've shared some techniques and some information that can be helpful to you.
Most definitely. And you guys, can we thank Mrs. Darden for taking out time? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Because, like I said, I love to learn as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, if you
One
guys,
last thing, I'm sorry to cut across.
you're
One
fine.
last thing I have to say. Dr. Meredith opened by introducing me and suggesting that I really care about students, which is absolutely true. And it's compounded by the fact that I have two young people who I birthed and reared. And so I just know, yes, you are the future. And everything that I've seen so far in my 19 years at DSU is that our future is bright. So thank you for being part of that bright star.
Wow. You better be a commercial. It's like, no, no.